Previously on Marty Motoring, I got the supercharger all ready to go and in place, got it installed with the brackets as well as the crank pulley adapter. We got the belt on and gave it the correct tension with the tensioner, and then I trimmed the lower radiator hose for clearance. So hello and welcome to Marty Motoring. This I think might be part 3, video 3. This is the supercharger install on my Lexus IS 350, trying to split this up as best as I could. So let's continue. I started this day off by zip tying the wire that goes to the oil filter, which I assume is the sensor, out of the way of the belt, just so we had nice clearance. So you can kind of see in there, I had to reattach the ground strap. That was a little hard, but I got in from here. I don't know if I even really needed to detach that, as long as I detached it from up there. So lesson learned. So here we have the oil reservoir with the brackets on it. I just need to see where this mounts. I believe it's going to mount like this. This is the bottom, this is the top, obviously because of the cap. So I need to figure out where I'm going to mount this. Then we can continue with the lines and oil filter. I attached the oil reservoir to the brackets with the included hardware. The next step was to put the oil reservoir on, and the bracket that came with it, it's more so for the third gens, at least from the pictures. There's no cross member here, so I'll show you what I did. I did something a little different, made a custom mount. I didn't understand how the bracket works, so I ended up making a custom mount. I got some metal from the hardware store, some bolts and washers, just kind of mocked it up here, and it seems to be pretty sturdy. It's far enough away from the fan and the tensioner, so everything is pretty safe. Now we can run the lines, but you can see it's just a couple bolts, drilled some holes, bent some metal, and now we have a nice little bracket. So originally the oil cooler sits onto the plastic shrouding underneath the car, but it was a little flimsy and it would have been fine, but I figured I had some extra metal, so I made this. It's a little bit of a custom mount, and it is a little bouncy, but it's not hitting, which is nice. I just made some holes here, used a zip tie on this one because it's angled, and it seems to hold pretty well. It'll just make it a little bit more rigid and a little bit more of a custom mount. I started to run the first oil line to the reservoir, and also got the banjo bolts ready for the top and bottom. So now we have the oil cooler in place. And then over here we have the custom mounted oil reservoir. And we have the first line ran from the oil cooler, goes through here. And then it goes to the top banjo fitting of the reservoir. And now this one coming out will go to the supercharger, and there'll be an oil filter between that we're gonna put in last. And then the outlet of the supercharger will go back to the oil cooler. Once it comes into the reservoir, it goes out to the oil filter, which I tucked above the steering rack and below the supercharger itself. So this oil filter, it has flow going that way, coming from the reservoir, going to the oil filter, and then it goes to a line up to the inlet of the supercharger. So it's a little complex, a little tight, but that is in there. It's not gonna really move around. I did zip tie it to an existing wiring harness here, and that seems to hold it in place pretty good. It's just, yeah, the oil filter and supercharger and everything is pretty tight. I don't see there being heat issues up there. This oil is going to be hot anyway, but these lines are insulated. But we have all the connectors tightened on it all the way around. So now we're just going to run the outlet line that goes back to the oil cooler, and we'll be good to go. And this is going to be the outlet back to the oil cooler. So I have a line running from the oil cooler on the other side to here. Cut this, but I don't want to make it too short. I want to give it a little slack so we can zip tie it. So the outlet line is on there. So now I ran all of the oil lines. I haven't pressurized or primed the system or anything like that, but they're all ran, and I'm going to install the rest of the intercooler piping. So the air intake and coming off of the supercharger and everything, So we're gonna do that next. We got the 45-degree connector into the supercharger. It should be the outlet because the inlet is where the compressor wheel is, and that's where the air intake goes in. We're gonna have to fit this S-pipe into the inlet with the air intake right around this area. It's a little tight fit, but if we can get it to work, it'll be perfect. It's been hard to work with, but either way, the blow-off valve will go here. We'll have our intake pipe with the MAP sensor there. We have the S-pipe going to the compressor. We have an angled one coming out to this pipe here. There's just an angled one going into the outlet of the compressor. And then we have this just kind of sitting here, and our air filter is supposed to go here. It doesn't look like there's a lot of room. All this has been extremely tight and really hard to do, actually. We're gonna continue up here and see how everything fits.
So I don't know if it was me or just my inexperience with the kit and just being my first time doing it, but everything was just difficult at this point. Everything was very tight. I wasn't sure where parts went. There was a lot of experimenting and figuring out. The instructions aren't super clear about this part. They just say to put it on. So that's what I tried. I tried every setup until I found something that worked.
So I got a little bit farther. So here's the engine bay as you last saw, but I have everything connected up. To be honest, this was really hard and very tight. I cut up my hand multiple times. I even bled in there somewhere. The angle of it is very strange, but it does go on. I kind of had to turn some stuff and tighten it into position. I did scrape a lot of the powder coating down here, just trying to move this into position. We have a clamp here. There should really be 2 clamps here, but I used one to kind of seal it because it was kind of an edge that would bend. So this makes it nice and straight. Then we have one here, and one here. It seems to fit, like it's not causing any problems, but it is hitting the air filter just because of how tight everything actually is. This was not the fun part like I thought it would be easy. This was a little tough, but looks like we got it on, and I tightened everything down. Hopefully we don't have any air leaks. But next we can install the blow-off valve, see how that fits. And here we have the Turbo Smart blow-off valve, the Big Bubba. Just like that, the blow-off valve is on.
Next, I removed the cap on the intake manifold because this is where the air line from the blow-off valve will go to. I also removed the crankcase recirculation pipe and replaced it with the K&N so that it vents to atmosphere. The K&N filter hit the bracket for the engine cover, so I removed that. Then, I used the included adapter to connect the vacuum line.
So at this point, I don't know if that's the correct connector. There's electrical tape to connect it up here. That's coming from the blow-off valve, and it goes up there, but it's not pressurized, so that should be okay. We also have the K&N filter here that fits correctly now. So it's been a long, sweaty day, another day of hard work on the car, and we're just about done. We got everything installed. We just have to do some wiring, and some things just were very tight and didn't fit the best. The instructions weren't super clear to somebody that never has done it before, but I figured things out. We got it all together. Next, we'll be priming the system, putting the new tune file on that I got sent, and start up. So this is the fluid that it comes with that we're gonna put into the reservoir, and then we have to pressurize the system, and that'll prime it. And then we should be able to do a startup after we do a quick tune. It's blue. We're gonna put this fluid in with one of these, just because it's so far down. Looks like we're almost at the max. So we can put a little bit. All right. now you can see we're right at the max line.
Next, it was time to take the tune file that was emailed to me and put it onto the My Genius controller so that I could upload it to the car. That's all we have time for today, but definitely drop a comment in the comment section below. What do you think of the process so far? If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and follow along with this Supercharger build. Definitely tune in for the next one. Thank you for watching, and keep those wheels turning.